Before we begin this podcast, please be advised that the following episode contains language that some listeners may find offensive and inappropriate. The opinions expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not reflect the views of the podcast producers. Listener discretion is advised.
No violence, no drug or alcohol abuse from your parents. Went to church. Everything was perfect.
Oh, that turned me into a monster. He was like beating his head off the steering wheel when I got there. She looked at me with this look of love, frustration, fear, compassion. I've never seen a look like it. She believed that he would have killed her if I hadn't have stepped in. I spent my whole time in here really wanting to be mad about not getting off free.
You are now listening to the podcast Voices of a Killer. I'm bringing you the stories from the perspective of the people that have taken the life of another human and their current situation thereafter in prison. You will see that although these are the folks that we have been programmed to hate, they all have something in common. They are all humans like us that admit that they made a mistake. Will you forgive them, or will you condemn them? They are currently serving time for their murders, and they give us an inside glimpse of what took place when they killed and their feelings on the matter now. Here are the voices of those who have killed. On this episode of Voices of a Killer, we're talking to Kansas-born Marcus Spielman. At just 20 years old, Marcus's life took a sharp turn when he fatally shot his longtime friend, Ronnie Engel. Born in a stable, middle-class background, Marcus now finds himself behind the bars of a prison cell. Marcus's story is a stark warning about the power of addiction to wreck a promising young life. During our conversation with him, we trace the many misguided choices he made that took him from a privileged upbringing to a life of crime. Who was Marcus Spielman before that fateful February night? What circumstances led Marcus to raise his gun at Ronnie? And how will a criminal conviction reshape his life? Join us as Marcus walks us through a life of drugs, crime, and the consequences, all on this episode of Voices of a Killer. So, Marcus, you from Missouri?
I am from Missouri, but I was born in Kansas.
Okay. So you spent most of your life in the state of Missouri?
Yep.
How was your childhood?
Well, I would say that I had a pretty normal middle-class upbringing. Religious parents, brother, sister, special needs little brother.
Would it be easy to say that you didn't witness any kind of alcohol or drug abuse from your parents or violence or anything?
No, none.
Not at all?
None.
Okay. What did your parents do for a living?
My father was an auto body technician, and my mother was a retail manager for multiple plus-size women's stores.
Yeah. How many siblings do you have?
I have 3.
Do you have a relationship with your parents and your siblings?
Yeah, I have a great relationship with them.
You stay in contact with all of them?
Yeah.
Whenever you got out of your parents' house, did you go to further education? What kind of work did you do? What'd you do?
Oh, I pretty much went straight to addiction.
Oh, you got into drugs?
Yeah.
At what age did you get into drugs?
At 15 years old.
So you came from a pretty normal background, and somehow you were able to kind of sneak around and get into drugs. What was the first hard drug you did at what age?
Cotton at the age of 15.
What year would that have been?
Well, I'm 25 now. I'm going to say 2015.
2015. So you got into Oxycontin in 2015. You were still just a young adult. What do you say, 15 or 16 years old, or later than that?
Yeah, I would say 2014, 2015, I would have been 15 years old.
How did you get into that? Some friends had it? I mean, you kind of had a normal childhood and everything.
So I was raised very religious, like I said. I was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And one of my friends, he was kind of an outcast, and I was kind of an outcast, and he did drugs. And
your friend go to church with you?
Yep.
And you were Jehovah's Witness, you said?
Mm-hmm.
So your friend, that he's the one that kind of had it first, the drugs?
Yep.
Did y'all already do other drugs before that together?
No, weed. I smoked some weed with him.
Yeah. Had he got into it for the first time whenever he was with you, or when you met him, he was already deep into it?
No, he was already into it.
How did he introduce that to you? Did he say, did he bring it to church? How'd that happen?
We were kind of each other's excuse to rove about freely without our parents' knowledge. I kind of found out that he was smoking weed, and I wanted to smoke weed too because I'd been hearing about it from classmates.
Yeah. Do you feel like your childhood was pretty oppressed by your parents because of the Jehovah's Witness and things like that?
I wouldn't say oppressed, but sheltered.
Marcus came from a religious middle-class background. His parents were Jehovah's Witness, and by all accounts, they gave Marcus and his 3 siblings a solid start in life. With no drugs and no alcohol abuse, Marcus had a happy childhood with 2 loving parents who met all of their son's needs. But it was also a sheltered household, and as Marcus became a teenager, he started to look beyond the confines of his small, safe religious world. At church, he felt like an outcast who didn't belong, so as any typical teenager would, he sought freedom. It was around this time that he met a church friend who became his gateway to a world of drugs. The friend introduced Marcus to weed, but as his curiosity grew, he progressed to harder and harder drugs, while keeping his activities hidden from his parents. Many people fall into drug use because of a troubled childhood. Often when parents are drug users, a pattern of addiction can get passed on to their kids. But Marcus's story is different. Taking drugs was a deliberate break from his family, an act of rebellion against the religious values held by his parents and the church. So you basically, this guy that you went to church with, that was an avenue for you to, get weed from, smoke with, stuff like that. Y'all became friends that way.
Yeah.
And then I guess he came out with the Oxycontin.
No. He was the one that introduced me to marijuana for the first time. I introduced myself to Oxycontin.
Well, how did you do that?
So it's a long story, but long story short, I was on a cruise ship with my family, and my mother had brought the family pill supply, and I wanted to smoke some weed. There wasn't any weed, so I was remembered Oxycontin could get me high, so I tried Oxycontin by myself on a cruise ship.
And who'd you get that from?
I pretty much stole it from my mom.
Gotcha. What'd she have it for?
She had a bad back.
And that was your first time to try, was on the cruise ship?
Yeah.
And you just took one?
No, I took one, and then 30 minutes later, it didn't do anything. 30 minutes later, I took another one, and then another one. So I wound up taking 3 that night.
And then was it time release?
Yeah.
And then it finally hit you, and you felt really, really good?
I felt really, really sick. I thought I was going to die.
Really? You got real sick and felt like you nauseous?
Yeah.
Did you end up after that night thinking you'd never do that again?
No, because I went to sleep and I woke up and it was the best feeling I'd ever felt in my entire life.
So by that time, the time release had hit a spot when you woke up to where it actually was doing what it was intended to do?
Yeah.
And after that, it was pretty much set that you were going to seek out opiates?
Actually, opiates were not necessarily my downfall. I decided after that I would be a drug connoisseur. I wanted to try all different types of drugs.
Oh, okay. So that kind of set you on a path to go about experimenting. What was the second drug to experiment with?
I'm going to say acid or Xanax, one of the two.
Yeah. How was the acid?
Oh, I used to love it.
Did your parents ever find out you taking pills from them or doing acid by 16, 17, 18?
Oh, they found out.
Yeah. What did they do when they found out about this?
Oh, so they set me down on the couch. My mom, they found my extra phone and they went through it and they cried. I almost put my mom in the mental hospital. It was pretty rough. They grounded me.
What did they find in the phone?
They found all of my communications with all of my friends that were involved in the drug world.
Yeah, just lots of conversations about getting high and all that stuff.
Yeah. Lots of criminal activity. They found content about guns and drugs and money and women.
What was their approach on that to solve this issue? What was their fix?
Well, they took my phone. They took the car keys. My dad got rid of my dog. They
Your
tried
dog?
to ground. Yeah, I had a dog. I had a German Shepherd. That was like my best friend.
Poor dog. Okay, and I'm going to assume that you're probably already deep into doing drugs. That didn't really change much.
No, not at all.
What was the next drugs after acid, Xanax, the opiates? What did you go to next?
Molly, MDMA,
So you went to ecstasy and then what?
and then meth.
And then meth. Did you shoot up the meth?
Yeah, I did meth any way that I could do meth, but I am an IV user, or was.
Do you feel like meth is the one out of all those that kind of got you on a path of destruction?
Yeah, that's one that grabbed a hold of me.
Yep. What's some of the stuff that you were doing on meth that was just really out there that you recall?
Oh, meth turned me into a monster. I allowed it to involve me in things, robbery, extortion, things that I wouldn't necessarily want to talk about over an institutional phone. Murder, obviously.
Did you ever break into people's houses and at gunpoint?
I have.
Yeah. Do you feel like it made you really just a completely different person than you actually are?
Absolutely.
One of Marcus's first drug experiences was stealing Oxycontin while on a cruise trip with his family. After that first pivotal experience, the floodgates were opened. Marcus began experimenting with drugs of increasing severity, from acid, Xanax, and ecstasy to more dangerous drugs like meth. Marcus was hooked, and with each use, he spiraled deeper into addiction. He couldn't keep his drug use a secret forever, though. Once, his parents found out his secret after they found messages on his phone. Distraught, they tried to punish him by confiscating his phone and car and getting rid of his German Shepherd. But their efforts were ineffective, and Marcus was already deeply addicted. Meth, in particular, turns Marcus into a completely different person. What makes meth so dangerous is its strong potency. It can rewire how the brain works, turning a calm person aggressive and violent, and even inducing paranoia and psychosis. And the effects of meth are so intense that users often resort to theft to fuel their addiction. That's what happened to Marcus. He quickly became involved in criminal activity. He is reluctant to admit exactly what he did, but he does mention robbery, blackmail, and home invasion. Hard drugs had thrown him into a destructive criminal lifestyle and threatened to derail his life. And who is the victim in your case?
His name's Ronnie Engel.
What's your relationship with him?
I had known him since the 6th grade. He was a friend of mine.
So this guy, you grew up as kids with him. Is this the same guy that went to your church?
No.
But you had known him
No.
since 6th grade, and he's a classmate, a buddy. What was your relationship through school with this guy? Enemies, friends?
Friends, I would say. Yeah, we were friends.
Pictures together and going out and like a homie?
Yeah, we partied, rode around together.
Was he also in the
Mid-
drugs?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Would you say he was equally into drugs as you were?
Yeah.
What did he do? Shoot a meth like you or what?
No, he was an all-round user, kind of like myself, meth, heroin, PCP, things
Yeah.
of that nature.
Yeah. You and Ronnie were basically friends for a very, very long time. Were there any points in time that y'all got really mad at each other or had an argument or disagreement where you weren't friends?
You know, when I first met him in the 6th grade, we got in a fist fight.
Oh, okay.
But after that, we became friends.
Yeah, that's actually pretty typical. You're just children trying to figure it all out. But as you grew into an adult, you're 18, 19, what was your relationship with Ronnie then?
It was off and on. It wasn't like we were best friends. It was more like we were friends, but not like everyday friends, if that makes sense.
Do you think there was some animosity underneath the surface with either one of you?
I don't know. I don't believe that I had any animosity towards him.
What about him?
I don't think he had anything against me.
Take me back to the day that your crime occurred. Not the actual crime. We're just talking about the day. You woke up. Were you on a bender? You stayed up the night before? Did you wake up and do this or that? What happened?
Okay, that day I did wake up. I woke up off of a bender. I got high. I was riding around. I think I may or may not have robbed somebody. I can't remember how that day went, but I remember I was...
And just to stop for a minute, you say you may or may not have robbed somebody. Was this kind of typical when you needed to get, $40, $50 or whatever it was, you just robbed somebody?
Yeah.
So just for a moment, just to break free for a minute and think about this, you're a guy that came up in a middle-class family, that your parents, no violence, no drug or alcohol abuse in your parents, went to church, everything was perfect. It's not like you didn't have family to help you with anything you probably wanted. You're actually, the drugs got you where you're actually robbing people. That's pretty powerful. If you think about it, you know what I mean? It just shows you right there how powerful how powerful that methamphetamine is. And you're sitting in prison right now for murder. Would it be easy to say that if it wasn't for meth, you would not be in prison and somebody else would not be dead?
I take full accountability. I don't blame the drugs, actually.
Sure.
I blame.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to put it off on just drugs, but I'm trying to say that if you weren't on drugs, would you have done that?
No.
That day, you're out and about riding around. What happened after that?
Okay, I was hanging out with this girl and my homeboy, and I was just hanging out, probably getting high, smoking some weed, and it was a pretty average day in that lifestyle that I was living.
Who was with you, you said?
My homegirl Chase and my buddy Motown.
And y'all were all just hanging out?
Yeah.
And what happened after that?
I decided that I wanted to leave, and I was going to go across town to hang out with some different people.
Were these two people relying on you for a ride, or they had their own wheels to get out?
No, they had their own wheels. I just left them at the house.
So they were okay with you parting ways?
Yeah.
So you went on and left them, and where'd you go?
Well, I was getting on the highway. I was going to go to Raytown, which is a part of Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Probably about 30 minutes away from where I was from at the time.
As a young adult, Marcus was living a life that was in stark contrast to his privileged upbringing. He'd been raised in a stable, nonviolent household that was rooted in religious values. Now he was getting high at every opportunity, partying and stealing. Meth is powerful, and it strikes me that even somebody with a strong foundation in life can get drawn into a life of drugs and crime, to the point that they end up killing somebody. The unfortunate victim was Ronnie Engel, an old school friend of Marcus's. They'd partied together a couple times and, for the most part, were on friendly terms. Like Marcus, Ronnie was a young 20-year-old entangled in a drug habit. They operated in the same circles in Kansas City and occasionally crossed paths. No signs of animosity existed between them, no hint of what would happen on the night of February 16th. That Thursday was like any typical day for Marcus. In the morning, he woke up after a big bender and got high at home. Then, needing cash, he drove around town, picking out a target to rob. For Marcus, this was an uneventful day, and as it rolled on, everything seemed normal.
Then I got a call from Maddie, which would be Ronnie's girlfriend.
What'd she say?
She said something that I kind of forgot to leave out, is that they had called me earlier in the day, Maddie and Ronnie, and asked to borrow some money.
Okay.
And I told them at that time that I'd already loaned them some money and that they could find some drugs or something for me to buy, and I'd give them a little bit extra.
And then later on the day, they call back again?
Yeah.
What was that call about this time? Same thing?
Yep. They said, hey, meet me. She told me to meet them at her grandmother's house. They had some acid.
Some acid. Okay.
Mm.
Marcus, at this point in time, the victim in your case, Ronnie, and his girlfriend, Maddie, are calling you a second time, asking about meeting you up at Maddie's grandmother's house for some acid.
Yep.
You agree upon that, I guess, and then you head that way?
Yep.
Whenever you get there, what's the house look like? Is Grandma out there, with flowers? Is she there at all? What's going on?
Okay, so when I get there, Maddie and Ronnie are in the driveway, and they're pulled in normal, and I back in the driveway. There's no one else around, and it's dark out, nighttime.
What time is it?
Ooh.
So like midnight or 8 p.m. or?
I'm going to say anywhere from 7 to 10 p.m.
It's not really odd evening hours to be out, but it's pretty quiet when you pull up. You said they are there or they're not there yet?
Yeah, they're there. They're in the driveway.
Are they sitting in the vehicle?
Yeah.
Do you actually get out and approach them or what do you do?
No, so I rolled down my window. Like I mentioned, I was backed into the driveway.
Okay. You yelled at them or something?
No, our cars were really armed. I could have reached out and shook Ronnie's hand.
Okay.
We were driving.
Okay, so y'all are driving a driver right there. What was their demeanor like whenever you pulled up? Were they happy to see you or what?
I would say almost distraught.
Distraught? Why were they distraught?
Well, Maddie got into my car, and I guess they'd had a bad night. They'd been shot, done some bad drugs. Not shot, but shot at.
Uh-huh. Shot out like a drug deal or something. Bad neighborhood?
Yeah. Something.
Yeah. So they were all the remnants of being ripped off in a bad night?
Yeah. She was pretty distraught because she said that they had got a hold of some bad drugs and he had laid hands on her. Their back windshield was broken out because I guess someone had shot at them.
Yeah. So he got aggressive with her?
Yeah.
She was trying to kind of tell you that in a hurry. Was he kind of listening in whenever she jumped in the car? Did you close up your window or he couldn't hear that?
Yeah, I don't think he could hear because she was like whispering it.
What was your reaction whenever she said that he was being aggressive and all that?
So my reaction was that of one that kind of had a callous to this situation because it has been an ongoing situation. And she continued to go back to him. So I wasn't really as upset as I might have been a couple times before that.
So what happened after that little discussion?
Well, if I backtrack a little bit,
yeah,
I actually wanted to talk to them because I had been at a house with some pretty serious people that told me that they had ripped them off. And my homegirl that I was with previously, that they had kind of taken me over there to sign her car over to.
Mm-hmm.
Ripped these people off for a large quantity of drugs.
Okay. So did you approach them about that?
Yeah, I did.
Was Maddie in the car with you and Ronnie was in his car when you were talking about this, or were they already?
Yeah.
What was their reaction whenever you told them that, that they screwed over somebody that was pretty serious?
She was feigning ignorance and he got belligerent. He started screaming at her, telling her to get out of my car. Because
you said that they ripped somebody off and they were concerned about that?
Yeah.
What did she do whenever he started freaking out on her?
She locked the door.
She did?
Yeah.
Did you roll up the window? Did Ronnie get out?
But at this time, Ronnie backed his car up and blocked us in the driveway.
Oh, shit.
He gets out of his car with a hatchet.
Do you roll up your window?
No.
What do?
I grabbed my gun.
As soon as you saw that hatchet, you grabbed your gun?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of gun was it?
It was a Ruger 22, competition-style pistol.
Had you ever shot it before?
Yeah.
Were you a felon at the time?
Yeah.
So you were a felon with a firearm?
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you pulled that gun out, what did Maddie do?
She just kept screaming at Ronnie to calm down.
Was Ronnie saying stuff towards you, F you and all this stuff because of that?
He was telling me to get his bitch out of his car.
Why do you think that Ronnie got upset over you just giving information about, passing information on? Did you say something smart to him or what?
I told him that people were looking to harm him and her, and he just wigged out.
Were you a smart ass about it? I mean, or why wouldn't he just take the information? Because, if you would have told me that and I'd done something like that, I'd been like, no, that's what they're saying. Really? Wow. Tell me more, instead of freaking out on you because you're just the messenger. So why did he freak out on you? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's something that I struggle with myself. I personally believe that it had nothing to do with the content. I have two separate beliefs. One is that he was already kind of freaking out and high on too many substances because he was like beating his head off the steering wheel when I got there.
He was beating his head on the steering wheel when you got there?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a pretty intense ordeal.
Right.
Unexpectedly, Marcus had found himself in a confrontation with Ronnie Engel. Earlier that night, he'd received a call from Maddie, Ronnie's girlfriend, offering him some acid in exchange for payment. When Marcus pulled up at Maddie's grandmother's house on Post Street, it was dark and quiet, early in the night. Immediately, the atmosphere was tense. Maddie and Ronnie were seated in a parked car in the driveway. Clearly, they'd had a rough night. Their car had been shot at and the back window was smashed. In a state of distress, Maddie slipped into Marcus's passenger and explained that Ronnie had also turned aggressive on her that night. But that night was about to get a whole lot worse. Marcus also had a serious message to deliver to the couple. Maddie and Ronnie had ripped some people off in a big drug purchase, and they were in trouble. Although Marcus was only the messenger, the news triggered something in Ronnie. He went ballistic and started screaming at Maddie to get out of Marcus's car. When Maddie locked the door, Ronnie blocked the driveway with his car so Marcus couldn't leave, and then pulled out a hatchet. What was running through Ronnie's mind, we'll never know. Marcus drew on his gun, a Ruger 22 competition-style pistol, ready to shoot. And whenever he gets out with that hatchet, does he put on a show in front of your car, or does he approach the driver's side? Tell me how that looks.
So he actually approached her side.
Okay.
And that's whenever I got out of the car.
Whenever you got out of the car, did you have the gun in your hand?
Yeah.
Where was he whenever the first place that he would have noticed you holding the gun? Or did you tell him, like, I'm going to shoot you? What was the discussion like, just that instance of getting out and all that, happening?
Well, I had pointed the gun at him the moment he got out of the car with the hatchet through
the door, through the windshield, I mean?
Yeah.
And that didn't faze him?
No.
So whenever you got out, did you get out and like circle the car? Or did you just stand, across the car from him? Did you shut your door? What did that look like?
No, I got out and I left the driver's side door open, pointed my gun at him, and by this time he was by the driver's side headlight.
He came back around your side?
Mm-hmm.
What was the look on his face? Did it look like a guy that you thought was pretty serious and he could have done something to harm you? Did it look like a guy that was trying to show off, or what was that facial expression like?
He looked like he had rabies.
Were you scared of him at that point?
No.
You weren't scared of him?
No. I mean, in truth, to say that I wasn't fearful, I think I'd have to be a lunatic not to be fearful. But I don't think that I was scared because I was willing to shoot him.
So let's do this. This guy's running after you. He's already made it to the front of the driver's headlight. Where are you at this point?
I'm right outside of the door, standing like I just got out of the car.
And Maddie's still in the car in the passenger seat?
Yeah.
And do you raise the gun up like eye level, or do you pull it up by your hip, or what?
No, eye level.
And did you say anything while he was approaching you at eye level?
Yeah, I told him that if he didn't drop the hatchet, I was going to kill him.
Did he say anything to you whenever you said that?
Not that I recall, but he raised the hatchet like he was going to swing it.
And how far was he whenever you pulled the trigger on the first time?
5 feet.
5 feet? And where did you strike him?
Where did I hit him?
Yeah, where did you strike him?
In the solar plex, like dead center of the chest, and in the arm.
You fired twice?
3 shots were fired.
Was he in a walking motion towards you, or was he standing still with the hatchet raised above his head?
He was moving towards me.
Did he fall on his face?
Yep.
What did Maddie do whenever those shots were fired?
She told me to get back in the car. Let's go.
She wanted y'all to leave?
Mm-hmm.
And let me guess, you left.
Absolutely.
That's another reason why you're in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You might have had a fighting chance staying, but yeah, leaving really, man. Whenever he fell, was he still moving or grunting or doing anything?
He said her name.
While he was laying on his face, he said her name?
Yeah.
Did you say anything to him?
No.
Was his car still in the way?
This is something that I struggle with, and I've struggled with for the past 6 years. His car started rolling down the hill at that very moment.
What? Oh, okay. So you struggle with understanding why that happened the way it did?
Yeah. 10 more seconds and I'd have just had a broken windshield or something.
Yeah, that's crazy. So basically, had the car rolled off, you could have pulled forward and left him with a hatchet.
Yeah.
And let him throw it at your car. You think you would have left if that car would have moved out of the way in time?
Yeah.
So after y'all hop back in the car and that his vehicle's out of the way, y'all leave. Or did you look at him just before you left? Was he still trying to move, or what was he like when you just left?
I didn't see him.
In a tense standoff, Marcus got out of his driver's seat and raised his gun to eye level. 5 feet away from Ronnie, Marcus warned him to drop the hatchet or get shot. But Marcus vividly describes Ronnie's eyes as wild, almost rabid, and he raised the hatchet as if he was about to strike. 3 shots fired, hitting Ronnie in the arm and in the chest. Marcus's old school friend fell, face first to the ground, where Marcus could still hear him saying Matey's name. Suddenly, Ronnie's car started rolling down the driveway. It's a bizarre tale that Marcus still can't quite explain, but it was also a stroke of luck as it unblocked the driveway. In the gap that opened, Marcus sped off with Maddie, leaving Ronnie lying on the dark driveway of Maddie's grandmother's house. As they drove off, Marcus wasn't yet sure that Ronnie was dead. However, what had been a split-second decision in a moment of chaos would become a life-changing event. So right now you're sitting in prison for shooting this guy, and everything you're telling me sounds like self-defense. I would assume that, and this is the part of the system I don't like, because you're a felon, because you had a gun and you're a felon, because there was drugs involved, and she's on drugs, he's on drugs, you're on drugs, that they no longer look at you as a law-abiding citizen protecting themselves. They look at you as a guy out there, a felon with a gun, breaking one law, just having it, and then a shootout with, because of drugs. Otherwise, everything sounds like self-defense. Would you agree that that's the only reason you're in prison, because you're a felon and it was drugs involved?
Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. In this specific situation, yes, but I was already on the path to killing somebody at this time.
Well, but the way you just described it to me, a guy running after you with a hatchet, that's what you're supposed to do, is kill him, and otherwise you're going to get a hatchet in your forehead. And especially when they block you in, I'm having some hard time figuring out why, except for I know why, because you're a felon with a gun and there's drugs involved. That's why you're in prison. But you're saying if that wouldn't have happened, you would have killed somebody else. Why would you?
Yeah.
Why would you have done that?
Well, see, I've struggled with this concept for a long time of self-defense. But if I'm 100% honest with myself and others, then to be truthful, I was involved in gang activity. I was involved with a lot of dangerous people, and I was already in that lifestyle.
Okay. So, yeah, so you're a criminal. I already mentioned that, you're a criminal and you have a felon with a gun, but you think somewhere you would have killed somebody without them trying to attack you with a hatchet or a machete or whatever it was?
That's just what I'm saying.
That's crazy. Why would you? That's a pretty hardcore path you were on. Did you not claim self-defense with this? What happened after your charges? What happened?
Okay. I tried to claim self-defense, and I spent a lot of time in the law library. But in Missouri, when you're charged with any type of felonious homicide, there is no self-defense in felony homicide.
Because you were a felon with a gun?
Yeah.
So you're telling me if somebody is a felon and they're about to get killed and they hurry up in some kind of way, whether they had the gun already, if they just use a gun to save themselves. Here's the thing, there could be other stuff to the story, obviously, because I'm only getting your side, but to me, there could be a case for self-defense here. Ronnie, wielding a hatchet, clearly threatened Marcus and Maddie's life. He was in a violent, erratic state that Marcus couldn't reason with, and Ronnie had blocked Marcus's car in the driveway, giving Marcus no way to escape or to de-escalate the situation. If I were in Marcus's shoes, I can't say I wouldn't do the same thing. Shooting to save your life seems justified, and it's hard to understand why Marcus is sitting in prison right now. Perhaps the court saw that he had a time and place to escape harm without violence. Nevertheless, when this case approached trial, Marcus found himself in a legal bind. In Missouri, self-defense does not apply to cases of felony murder. It's frustrating, but in the way the law is written, Marcus was unable to claim self-defense on his murder charge. Despite this, Marcus tries not to dwell on the outcome of his case. Instead, he's willing to admit that he was caught up in a destructive lifestyle, mixing with gangs, and sooner or later, something like this was bound to happen. Whether or not he intended to kill Ronnie, Marcus says that every bad decision from his past led him up to this event, and he's prepared to take accountability for the person that he was. After the break, we'll hear from Marcus about the days after the crime. Where did y'all go?
We went to Motown's house.
Motown? Is that like a drug dealer or something?
He was, I guess you could say, like one of my big homies at the time.
Yeah. Did y'all tell him what happened?
I actually did, like an idiot.
What did he say?
He said we couldn't stay there. He got us together and took us somewhere else.
Oh, he actually took y'all somewhere else? Why? I thought you had a vehicle.
He actually took it and parked it somewhere else.
Your vehicle that you drove?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why did he get it?
Because the crime happened only a couple blocks away from his house.
So where did you and Maddie go?
We went to kind of a safe house location that I had.
Y'all hid out there for how long?
Man, this is going to sound crazy. 5 hours, maybe less.
Then where?
Then I let her go, and then I ran back and got my car.
What was you and Maddie's discussion like as y'all were, the 5 hours here and there? Did y'all talk about what happened?
Yeah, I'll never forget the look she gave me.
Yeah.
All right. I remember sitting across from her, and she gave me this, I don't know, I call it a soul-piercing gaze, because she looked at me with this look of love, frustration, fear, compassion. I've never seen a look like it. There was a lot of love in it, though, friendship,
Yeah. Had you ever been in a relationship with Maddie before?
No, she was just like my little sister.
Yeah. So y'all go ahead and jump from place to place. What was the next place after your little 5-hour rendezvous?
Her family or somebody came and picked her up.
Did she tell them?
I don't know. She wound up telling her brother. I do know that.
Did y'all have a discussion about not telling anybody?
Yeah, she actually said that she wanted to take the weight because she believed that he would have killed her if I hadn't have stepped in. And she knew that I was already a felon, and she had already had marks on her from him.
Was your gun an illegally purchased gun?
No.
She told her brother, you said, or her dad?
She actually wound up telling her brother and her brother's friend.
Anybody, one of them called the police?
Yeah, it says in my discovery that they told her that they had to go down to the police station. So they got in their car, and they drove straight down to the police station.
Took her with them?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they went in there and forced her to say what happened?
Yeah, I don't know if it'd be forced or...
Well, I mean, they said this is what you need to do. Was it in the news yet?
Yeah, I do believe so.
How many days had passed or hours from the time that he was murdered till she drove up to that police station?
12.
12 hours?
The next morning, yeah, the very next morning.
And it was on the news? Did you see it on the news?
No, but I had people tell me it was on the news. My mother told me it was on the news.
At that point, had you told anybody, or did you keep silent about it?
I had only told Motown. I didn't tell anybody else.
That's crazy that usually, I would say the biggest rule of thumb is whenever you kill somebody, you don't tell anybody. You guys told several people right away. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I didn't think that I had killed him. I just thought I shot him. And I went right over, and I trusted Motown. I had a lot of love and trust for him.
Did he end up saying anything?
I was like, Absolutely.
Did he call?
told.
He called as well and told?
No, they actually had to arrest him and bring him in for questioning.
And he rolled on you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. But did that same day that she told, they came, swooped in and arrested you?
No, they came 4 days later.
4 days later. Wow.
Yeah.
That was a long time. What did you do in those 4 days? Did you talk to Maddie?
No, I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't log in to
You
Facebook.
didn't try to get a hold of the person that watched you shoot somebody and check on them?
I didn't want to.
Okay. So what did you do in that 4 days? You just laid low and that's it?
Laid low, partied, trying to find a way out of town.
You wanted to skip town?
Yeah.
Where was your plans to go?
I didn't know. Anywhere. I was just going to travel until I found somewhere. I was kind of thinking Canada, not Mexico. Everyone was Mexico.
In the 4 days after the incident, Marcus went into hiding. By that time, police had responded to reports of gunfire at a home in North Kansas City, and they found Ronnie dead in the driveway. As the story hit the local news, Marcus realized he was in serious trouble. For a few days, he laid low and made plans to leave town for Canada. Perhaps going on the run would have been possible if Marcus had kept his crime under wraps. Unfortunately, he made the mistake of confining his buddy, Motown, who later snitched to the police. Maddie had promised to stay silent too, but she confessed to her brother and a friend who took her down to the police station to talk, which was probably the best thing for her. But Marcus was now a wanted man. From the way Marcus talks about it, the betrayal from Maddie seems to sting the most. He thought of Maddie as a little sister, and he recalls the haunting look she gave him after the crime. It was a look mixed with fear, love, and gratitude. Killing Ronnie hadn't just saved Marcus's life, he had freed Maddie from what appeared to be a violent cycle of domestic abuse. And I guess at some point, what happened?
Well, at some point, I ran out of drugs, and me and my buddy needed to go find some drugs. So I was like, come on, let's go. And I wound up going to one of my homegirls' house that I thought would be safe.
And what happened?
Whenever I knocked on the door, she opened the door and pulled me in and told the boy I was with us to get in the house. And she slammed the door and she was like, dude, the cops just left here 3 hours ago. You gotta go.
Oh, they came looking for you?
Yeah, I guess they knew.
What was your reaction knowing that they're looking for you for somebody that has died and because of you? What was your reaction?
I'd say almost just lost. I was lost. I didn't know what to think, what to do.
Yeah,
who
because
to trust.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge deal. Like right now, you're sitting in prison, and at that moment, back when you got this news, it's hey, somebody died because of you. There was an incident. You got explaining to do. You got a system that's going to want to try to prosecute you. At that moment, now that the police are after you. What's your next move?
My first instinct was to get out of there.
Where'd you go?
Well, I went right into the driveway and about 3 houses down before I was swarmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got you, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Straight to questioning?
Actually, they took me to a little police station, and then they took me to downtown Kansas City.
Yeah. Did you tell them everything like you just told me, or what did you do?
No, I told them I wanted a lawyer right away.
So they wanted to talk to you, and you lawyered up. Did you tell your lawyer everything just like you told me?
No. I actually did not tell anyone anything for 2 years until right before I was going to do depositions. I told a private investigator that my mother and father had hired, or I really hired her, but I told her what happened.
So what were you telling previously? Were you just saying nothing? Were you going to plead no contest? What were you doing to your lawyer and everybody else before that?
Well, I had a public defender, and I didn't really, to tell you the truth, I didn't want to talk about it till it was right before trial.
So you actually never even told the story, like in any shape or fashion? You didn't tell it until that moment, and then you told it like you told it to me?
Yeah, I didn't tell Well, I told people since I've been convicted, but for those 6 years, I didn't tell my mom and dad. I didn't tell
Let me ask you
my
this.
roommate.
Let me ask you this. Did you plead guilty or not guilty?
I wound up pleading guilty.
You wound up pleading guilty to what?
Voluntary manslaughter.
Okay. Did Maddie have the same story as you had?
No. Maddie told them all types of crazy stuff.
What did they say? What was the craziest thing that she tried to say that's different from your story?
That I kidnapped her.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
What else?
So this is what I'm about to tell you isn't from the paperwork, but this is from like people coming in the county jail that had talked to her.
Mm-hmm.
They would come in and say, "Man, you shot her in the head. Man, you tried to rape her. Man, you did this." I heard so many different stories. I heard that I shot him at Walmart and that I walked up on him and her in the middle of Walmart. I heard all types of crazy stories.
So you actually plead guilty to the manslaughter. What did they sentence you to?
15 years.
And do you think that what you were found guilty of and the sentencing, what is your feelings on that? Justified? Not at all?
Justified. I'm content.
I mean, that guy attacked you with a weapon. The way you explained it, I think that, if it was me, I would be not feeling like it's justified to put me in prison to shoot somebody when they're approaching me with a hatchet. Really, really upset. If you want to charge me with leaving the scene and all that stuff like you did, then that's justified. But the way you explained it, man, how do you think that that's okay?
I believe that it's okay because it saved me. It saved me from what I was about to do. It saved me from the lifestyle I was down.
That's okay. That indirectly, we're talking about some different things, but yeah, I see what you're saying now. For me, I'm not out there doing math. I'm about to kill somebody anyways.
Yeah.
If that's my scenario, of course, I would also stayed.
I spent my whole time in here really wanting to be mad about not getting off free for him trying to hit me with a hatchet, right?
So you feel relief in taking accountability and not fighting it in your head?
Yeah, that's why I was trying to tell you more about the lifestyle that I was involved in, because I was involved in a very dangerous lifestyle. And I know for a fact that he pretty much just provided me with an opportunity that I was already looking for at that time.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. You're making your story more than what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the scenario of a guy attacking me and I have a gun in my hand. That's it. I'm not looking at nothing else. And neither is a lot of other people out there that are going to hear this. All we always do is we put ourselves in your shoes. Whatever it is, that's what we do. We put ourselves in the victim's shoes too. And then we're like, what do we do? We imagine ourselves being that person. That's just what we do. So I'm not imagining what you were doing 10 years from now, smoking meth or whatever, you shooting up. And all I'm thinking about is what if that was me with a gun and somebody's attacking with a hatchet? No other context involved. And that's why I have that outlook on it. Marcus's arrest happened in an instant. When his supply of drugs ran low, Marcus went by his friend's house for a refill. But he was met with unwelcome news. She told him that the police were looking for him and he needed to get out of there fast. Cops must have been monitoring the house. Marcus made it only a few houses up the road before he was swarmed and taken into custody. For the next 2 years, Marcus chose to remain silent. He refrained from disclosing details about Ronnie's death to anybody, not even to his public defender. Meanwhile, Maddie was telling a different version of events. A number of crazy stories came back to Marcus's ear. Stories that he'd kidnapped or raped her and that he'd shot Ronnie in a Walmart. It was only shortly before his deposition that Marcus opened up to a private investigator, finally setting the record straight. At court, Marcus pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Despite everything, Marcus is at peace with his sentence. In his eyes, incarceration has redirected him from a toxic path. It's forced him to take accountability and saved him from the gang lifestyle he was ensnared in. Many news stories end when the perpetrator is sent to jail, but often that's only the beginning of the story. Still in his early 20s, Marcus has to face the next few years in the prison system, where he's had to adapt quickly to life in prison. So you're sentenced to 15 years at what, 85%?
No, 40%.
40%. Gosh, what have you done the math on that? I'm certainly you have. How many months is
Yeah,
that? How many years?
7.
So there's 180 months in 15 years times 40%, 72 months.
Okay. So this much I know to be true is that I see the parole board in 11 days from today on October 12th. And 4 months after that is my earliest eligibility date, which would be like February 17th of 2024.
So how's prison been for you?
It hasn't been bad.
I mean, do you
I mean, of course.
I mean, what's your overall, do you feel like it helps the people in there, or you think it's just a place that, drives people crazy, or what?
No, I actually believe that prison is a horrible place for people because the guards don't treat you fair, and they're not really focused on rehabilitation or correction. They're really focused on housing and farming.
Have you been in any fights in there?
Yeah.
You win?
Yeah, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah. What's most of the fighting over?
Pride.
Pride?
Yeah.
Have you joined any gangs?
I wasn't necessarily in a gang, but when you're from a certain area, you stick with the people from your area,
sure.
And you use a gang mentality.
Sure. Do you think you're going to use when you get back out?
No.
Do you think you can be completely sober and not use when you get out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm confident in that.
What would you say to somebody out there that's, came from a family like yours, that where they're 16, 17 right now, they may be hearing this and, they came from a normal family and they just want to mess around and try something like Oxycontin or meth or whatever. What would you say to them?
I would tell them that they're missing something in life and they're not going to find it in drugs.
Where do they
can only find it within themselves. Yeah.
Well, Marcus, I appreciate you talking to me. It's crazy that, I wonder what it would have been like if you would have stayed. I wonder what it would have been like if you wouldn't have been a felon. I think all those things come into account, but the way you explained it, I think any normal person that has a gun in their hand is going to fire a shot. Now, if it's not like you said it was and something else, because I don't interview the prosecutors, so I don't interview the person convicted, so that's also a way to not look at things, like it should be. But we've already heard the side from, the news and all that. That's why I get your side. But I appreciate you reaching out, and I hope everything goes good at your parole hearing, and I hope you do remain off of meth, especially when you get out. But take it easy, and thanks for reaching out.
All right, I appreciate you.
All right, man. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
On the next episode of Voices of a Killer. You're actually in prison for murder. Just a simple question. Are you guilty or not guilty?
Just talking about it makes me feel sick to the stomach.
And y'all left and went there?
Well, actually, we didn't leave. I wish we would have.
That's a major thing that you did as a youngster. What's that feel like looking back on that?
It took us for one person to be human enough, and I wasn't human enough at that time.
Do you think that somebody that has done what you've done, they don't deserve to be put to death?
That's a real good question.
That's a wrap on this episode of Voices of a Killer. I want to thank Marcus for sharing his story with us today. His ability to be open and honest is what makes this podcast so special. If you want to listen to these episodes weeks in advance, you can now do so by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/voicesofakiller. There you will get access to raw interviews, unseen news coverage, and unique correspondence with the guests of Voices of a Killer. Head over to patreon.com/voicesofakiller to support the podcast. Your support is what keeps us passionate about bringing these stories to you. A big shout out to Sonic Futures, who handled the production, audio editing, music licensing, and promotion of this podcast. If you want to hear more episodes like this one, make sure to visit our website at voicesofakiller.com. There you can find previous episodes, transcripts, and additional information about the podcast. Lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your feedback helps us improve and reach new listeners. Thank you for your support, and we can't wait to share more stories with you in the future. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Toby, and we'll see you next time on Voices of a Killer.